Have you ever noticed how being nice turns into an unspoken agreement that you'll stay quiet, stay available, and stay small just to keep others comfortable? People assume your kindness is endless, that you'll tolerate their disrespect because you're the understanding one. But what if I told you that the moment you stop overgiving is the moment they start showing who they really are? It's like feeding a stray dog every day. It never barks, never bites, just shows up, eats quietly, and leaves. But the day you stop feeding it, it never returns. No bark, no scratch at the door, just silence. That's when you realize it wasn't loyalty, it was convenience. That's what happens when you stop being nice to the wrong people. You don't lose a connection, you lose a habit, pretending to be one. And when you stop, they don't say, "Thank you." They say, "You've changed." They don't ask if you're okay. They ask why you're distant. That reaction, that's the real them, because while they loved your kindness, they never respected your limits. So now, you have a choice. Keep pleasing people who don't care, or protect your peace. Some people only love your silence, not your soul. What happens when you stop being nice to the wrong people? Stay until the end, because the last one isn't just a mindset shift. It's a reality check. Let's get started. Number 1, they show their true colors. Let's talk about what really happens when you stop being overly nice to the wrong people, especially those who've grown comfortable with taking your kindness for granted. You know the type. They sing your praises when you're always available, always agreeable, always saying yes. But the moment you draw a line, say no, or protect your own peace, they suddenly change. The charm fades, the praise turns cold, and the real person underneath begins to surface. Here's the truth. The moment you set boundaries, the mask slips. Those who once smiled in your face might begin to guilt-trip you, criticize you, or act like you've done something wrong just because you dared to prioritize yourself. They're not upset because you changed. They're upset because they can no longer benefit from your silence, your time, or your compliance. And that reaction, that's the most honest thing they've ever shown you. This is where Stoic wisdom comes into play. Epictetus said, "If speaking the truth makes them angry, they never valued the truth to begin with." In other words, if someone is only comfortable with the version of you that sacrifices for their benefit, they never truly respected you in the first place. They were loyal to what you provided, not to who you are. And when you stop giving, they stop pretending. Let me share a story. A woman I know, let's call her Rachel, was known for being the nice one in her group, always lending a hand, always saying yes, even when it cost her sleep, money, or peace of mind. But one day Rachel hit her breaking point. She started saying no. She stopped over-explaining, and she politely declined last-minute favors that always seemed to benefit others but left her drained. And guess what happened? Some people respected her even more, but others, they got cold. One friend actually said, "You've changed," as if setting boundaries was a betrayal. Another stopped talking to her altogether. At first, Rachel felt guilty, but then she realized those people weren't her real friends. They were only there for the version of her who never pushed back. So how do you deal with people who show their true colors the moment you stop being overly nice? First, don't ignore the shift. Their reaction to your boundaries reveals their original intent. Second, stand firm. Just because they're uncomfortable doesn't mean you're wrong. You're allowed to evolve. And finally, Be grateful for the clarity. When people show you who they really are, believe them. At the end of the day, being kind should never mean being a doormat. The wrong people will see your boundaries as a threat. The right ones will see them as self-respect. Either way, when you stop being nice to the wrong people, you don't lose anything. You just stop living a lie. And that kind of truth, that's where real peace begins. Number 2, they lose power over you. Let's talk about what really happens when you stop being overly nice to the wrong people, especially those who quietly thrived off your people-pleasing. See, when you're constantly agreeable, always accommodating, and forever putting others before yourself, you unknowingly hand over something valuable: control. You let their moods decide your responses, their expectations shape your choices, and their opinions influence your self-worth. But the moment you stop catering to their ego, something powerful shifts. They lose control. Here's the truth: your niceness gave them power. It wasn't just kindness, it was permission. You allowed them to take up space in your life without boundaries, to drain your energy without consequence, and to manipulate your silence into their advantage. But the second you stop explaining, stop apologizing, and stop seeking approval, that's the moment they start to feel powerless, because they realize they can no longer steer your emotions or decisions like they used to. And for people who thrive on control, that's terrifying. This is where Stoic wisdom cuts through the noise. Marcus Aurelius said, "You become powerful the moment you no longer seek approval." Why? Because needing approval makes you dependent on others for validation. But when you stop looking outward and turn inward, when your choices are guided by principle instead of people-pleasing, you regain something priceless: freedom. The kind of freedom that no manipulator or self-serving person can take from you. Let me tell you about someone I know. His name is Jason. For years, Jason was the nice guy, always agreeable, always putting everyone else first. He'd bend over backward for co-workers, even when it meant staying late with no credit. He'd go along with family demands, even when it crushed his own plans. Why? Because he didn't want to upset anyone. He wanted peace. But over time, he realized it wasn't peace. It was submission. And people had started to expect it from him, like it was a given. One day, something changed. Jason started saying no, calmly, firmly, without long explanations. And the result? People didn't take it well. One colleague snapped, "Wow, you're different now." A family member guilt-tripped him, saying, "You're not as generous as you used to be." But Jason didn't budge, and slowly something incredible happened. He felt lighter. The pressure disappeared. He realized those people were never in control. He had simply been giving away his power the whole time. So how do you handle it when they start losing their grip? Simple. Don't explain your strength. Own it. Stop overthinking their discomfort. Let them feel it. It's not your job to manage their reaction to your growth. At the end of the day, when you stop being nice to the wrong people, they lose access to the version of you that kept them comfortable, and you gain access to the version of you that's finally free. If you found this valuable, hit like and subscribe for more powerful insights. Number 3, your mental clarity returns. Let's talk about one of the most underrated benefits of stopping your habit of being overly nice to the wrong people. Something that isn't talked about enough. Your mental clarity returns. When you're constantly trying to please people who take more than they give, your mind becomes cluttered. You're always analyzing, anticipating, second-guessing. Did I offend them? Should I have said yes? Will they be upset if I don't respond right away? It's a constant state of mental fog, and the worst part is you probably don't even realize how loud it's gotten until the noise is gone. Here's the truth. Pleasing the wrong people clouds your judgment. You become so focused on meeting their expectations that you start ignoring your own intuition. You silence your inner voice to avoid disappointing others. Over time, your sense of direction starts to blur. You don't know what you truly want anymore because you're too busy managing how others feel about you. But the moment you step back, the moment you stop overgiving, overthinking, and over-apologizing, you begin to see things clearly again. That's where Stoic wisdom steps in. Seneca said, "Remove unnecessary things from your mind, and peace will return." It's simple, but profound. When you remove the weight of people-pleasing, especially for those who never deserved it, you create space. Space to think, to breathe, to focus on what actually matters. Mental clarity doesn't come from getting everything right for everyone. It comes from aligning your actions with what truly matters, protecting your values and peace. Let me share a story. A woman I know, let's call her Emily, was the go-to person for everyone in her life. Need a favor? Call Emily. Need emotional support at 2 a.m.? Emily will listen. But over time, she realized something. She wasn't okay. She was burned out, distracted, and constantly anxious. She'd lay awake at night, replaying conversations, wondering if she upset someone by being honest. Her mind was never quiet. Then one day she decided to stop. She didn't become cold, she just became clear. She set boundaries, stopped over-explaining, and gave herself permission not to answer every call. Within weeks, she felt like a different person. Her thoughts were calmer, her priorities came into focus, and for the first time in years, she felt peace. So how do you protect your mental clarity? Start by stepping back from people who drain it. You don't owe constant access to people who misuse it. Next, practice silence. Not every opinion deserves a response. Not every expectation deserves a reaction. And most importantly, reconnect with your own mind. Ask yourself, what do I need right now? Then honor that answer. At the end of the day, when you stop being overly nice to the wrong people, you reclaim your inner stillness, the clarity that was buried under guilt, fear, and noise. And in that stillness, you finally hear yourself again. Number 4, you gain self-respect. Let's talk about one of the most powerful shifts that happens when you stop being overly nice to the wrong people. Something deeper than just setting boundaries or cutting off toxic ties. What really happens is this: you gain self-respect. When you're constantly people-pleasing, you're not just putting others first, you're putting yourself last. You lower your voice so others can speak louder. You shrink your needs so theirs can feel more important. You say yes when you want to say no just to keep the peace. But what you're really doing is slowly abandoning yourself in the name of harmony. And every time you do that, your self-worth takes a hit. Here's the truth. Choosing peace over people-pleasing builds self-worth. Because peace isn't just about avoiding conflict, it's about protecting your inner space. When you stop saying yes to things that don't align with your values, something amazing happens. You start seeing yourself differently. You stop questioning your worth and start honoring your limits. You realize that your time, energy, and emotional well-being are not up for negotiation. You start acting like someone who matters, and that changes everything. This is where Stoic wisdom shows its strength. Epictetus said, "Respect yourself enough to walk away from anything that no longer serves you." That includes people who only take, conversations that drain you, and dynamics that leave you feeling small. Self-respect means refusing to abandon yourself for the comfort of others. It's not arrogance, it's alignment. It's recognizing that the more you respect yourself, the less tolerance you'll have for people who don't. Let me tell you about someone. His name is Ethan. For years, Ethan was the dependable one, the fixer, the guy who always said, "No worries, I got it," even when it cost him sleep, peace, or his own priorities. But one day, Ethan took a step back. He started evaluating who actually returned the same energy. The truth hit hard. Not many did. So he started making changes. He politely said no. He stopped over-explaining himself. And yes, some people got uncomfortable. Some even called him selfish. But something inside Ethan shifted. He started walking taller, thinking clearer, and feeling more grounded. Because finally, he was showing up for himself. So how do you build this kind of self-respect? First, stop apologizing for having needs. You're allowed to take up space. Second, make decisions that honor your values, not other people's comfort. And third, celebrate your growth, even when others don't. At the end of the day, when you stop being nice to the wrong people, you don't just gain peace. You gain a deeper relationship with yourself. You stop shrinking, you stop settling, and you start standing. And in that space, self-respect begins to grow, strong, quiet, and unshakable. If you've watched the video this far, don't forget to leave a comment with a thank you, and give it a like if you enjoyed the content. Your support means a lot and motivates me to keep creating more interesting videos. I hope you find inspiration in them and that we continue learning together. Thank you for your support. Number 5, they try to manipulate you back. Let's talk about what really happens when you stop being overly nice to the wrong people, especially those who are quietly benefiting from your compliance. When you pull away, set boundaries, or stop bending over backward to please them, they don't just walk away peacefully. Number manipulators have a pattern. Love you, but because they miss the control, your boundaries threaten the role they played in your life. And instead of taking responsibility, they try to shift the blame, making you question your decision. This is where Stoic wisdom speaks volumes. Marcus Aurelius said, "The closer one is to truth, the more falsehood resists." Think about that. The moment you start living more truthfully, when you say no without guilt, when you stop over-explaining, when you honor your peace, those living in falsehood will push back the hardest. Not because you're wrong, but because your clarity disrupts their control. Rachel's story, setting boundaries and gaining clarity. Her name is Rachel. For years, she had a friend who constantly leaned on her emotionally, took advantage of her time, and disappeared whenever Rachel needed support. But Rachel didn't say anything. She didn't want to cause tension. Until one day, she did. She pulled back gently but firmly, and immediately, that friend flipped. First came guilt. "I guess our friendship doesn't matter anymore." Then came charm. "I miss us. Let's hang out like we used to." But Rachel had learned something crucial. None of it was genuine. It was all about keeping the dynamic that worked for them, not for her. So she held her ground, and that decision changed everything. How to respond when manipulators try to pull you back. So, how do you respond when manipulators try to pull you back? Stay grounded. Their reaction doesn't reflect your worth. It reveals their dependence on your compliance. Don't explain too much. The more you explain, the more room you give them to twist your words. Trust the discomfort. Their resistance is proof that your boundary is working. At the end of the day, when you stop being nice to the wrong people, they will resist, but your clarity will outlast their manipulation. Let them panic. You're no longer playing the role they wrote for you. Number 6, you create space for genuine people. Let's talk about one of the most beautiful, often unexpected outcomes of stopping the cycle of being overly nice to the wrong people. You finally create space for genuine connections. At first, pulling away from toxic dynamics can feel lonely. You might find yourself wondering, did I do the right thing? Or, what if I end up with no one? But here's what really happens. As you remove people who are only around for convenience, attention, or control, you open the door for people who are truly meant to be there. Here's the truth. By letting go of toxic ties, you make room for relationships rooted in respect, not convenience. When you stop bending over backward for people who only reach out when they need something, you start to notice who's genuinely there for you. The ones who check in without an agenda. The ones who listen without turning the conversation back to themselves. The ones who respect your no without needing an explanation. These people might not be loud, and they might not show up in large numbers. But when they do show up, they bring peace, not pressure. This is where Stoic wisdom offers clear guidance. Seneca once said, "Associate with those who make you better." That means choosing relationships that elevate your character, not drain your spirit. People who help you grow, not shrink. People who walk with you, not behind you or ahead of you, but beside you. When you let go of those who never valued you for who you are, you start attracting those who do. Let me share a story. A guy I know, let's call him Brandon, had spent years surrounding himself with people who only showed up when it was convenient. He'd drive across town for them, help them move, lend money, whatever they needed. But when Brandon went through a difficult time, the same people were nowhere to be found. That's when he decided to step back. It wasn't a dramatic exit, just quiet distance. Slowly the noise faded, and something surprising happened. New people started entering his life. People who showed up consistently, people who asked how he was doing, not what he could do for them. Over time, Brandon built a smaller circle, but a stronger one. How do you make room for those kinds of people? Be willing to let go. If someone drains your energy, you don't owe them a permanent seat in your life. Get clear about your values. When you know what you stand for, you'll recognize who aligns with it. Trust the process. Genuine people don't always appear right away, but they won't come until there's space for them to enter. At the end of the day, when you stop being nice to the wrong people, you clear the path for the right ones to find you. And those relationships, they don't just feel better, they make you better. Number 7, your energy shifts. Let's talk about one of the most powerful transformations that happens when you stop being overly nice to the wrong people. It's something you don't see at first, but you absolutely feel it once it starts. Your energy shifts. When you're constantly pouring your time, focus, and emotional bandwidth into people who only take, people who disrespect your boundaries, manipulate your kindness, or disappear when you need them the most, you start running on empty. You feel tired for no reason. You lose motivation for the things that once excited you. You become so entangled in everyone else's needs that you forget your own. That's what makes this shift so important. Because here's the truth. When you stop giving to the wrong people, you reclaim your time, your energy, and your peace. That quiet, powerful shift doesn't just change your relationships. It begins to touch every area of your life. Your mind clears up. You start focusing better. You find yourself waking up without the emotional weight you used to carry. And maybe most importantly, you start choosing yourself. Not out of selfishness, but out of necessity. This is where Stoic wisdom becomes your anchor. Epictetus said, "He who is not a slave to others' expectations is truly free." That's what this shift is about. Freedom. The freedom to say no without guilt, to live without performing, to prioritize your own peace without asking for permission. When you stop living for everyone else's expectations, your energy no longer gets drained by trying to be liked or accepted. Instead, it gets redirected into things that actually matter to you. Let me share a story. A woman I know, let's call her Jenna, used to say yes to everything. Extra shifts at work, last-minute favors for friends, hosting events, even when she was emotionally drained. On the surface, she looked dependable, but behind the scenes, she was overwhelmed, anxious, and burned out. Then one day, Jenna hit pause. She didn't stop caring. She just started caring about herself too. She began saying no with calm confidence. She pulled back from people who only called when they needed something. And slowly, she noticed something. She had energy again. She started exercising, picked up hobbies she had abandoned, and she wasn't exhausted just from existing.